Plague doctors are not just historical figures, but symbols of the fight against one of the most terrifying diseases in human history. Their images are shrouded in legends and myths that continue to fascinate and sometimes even frighten us. Why did plague doctors become such iconic characters? Perhaps it is because of their unique appearance and the mysterious aura surrounding their work. According to legends, the beaked masks worn by plague doctors were not only designed to protect them from infection, but also symbolized their status and important role in society. These masks, resembling bird beaks, became an inseparable part of their image. But what lay behind this strange choice? What was the true function of these masks, and what did they symbolize in the context of the time? We will dive into this fascinating history to understand how plague doctors became an integral part of our cultural memory. The beaked masks, which became the signature of plague doctors, appeared in the 17th century, when Europe was hit by another wave of the plague. These strange and terrifying accessories were not simply part of the costume, but represented a complex system of protection. But how did they come about? According to historical records, the first beaked mask was developed by French physician Charles de Lorraine, who, in 1619, sought to protect himself from the plague by creating an apparatus resembling a beak. It not only covered the face, but also allowed the doctor to breathe through special herbs and aromatic substances placed inside the long nose. It was a kind of warning. "Go away, plague! I am protected." The mask symbolized not only protection, but also power. Plague doctors were a kind of messengers of death, and their appearance on the streets always caused fear and trembling. The beak, seemingly inherited from birds, became a symbol of the connection between life and death, between the doctor and his patients. There was irony in it. A protective mask, designed to save lives, became itself a symbol of fear and inevitability. The materials from which the masks were made also played an important role. They were usually made of leather and textiles, which could be soaked in aromatic oils. While some believed that smells could drive away the disease, others argued that it was merely a deception, masking the true nature of the infection. In this context, the mask became not just a piece of clothing, but a symbolic representation of both hope and hopelessness. Thus, the beaked masks are not just an eccentric element of the costume, but a complex and multifaceted symbol reflecting the realities of their time. They remind us of how humanity sought ways to cope with the horrors of disease, and how fear and hope intertwined in the minds of people faced with the unknown. Plague doctors were not just physicians but real heroes of their time, confronting the horrors of the plague every day. Their lives were filled with challenges and trials, and it was in these conditions that they displayed incredible courage and resilience. But what was their everyday life like? What did they experience when they went out into the streets, full of fear and despair? Each day of a plague, Doctor began with a ritual of preparation. He would don his beaked mask, long black cloak and hat, which emphasized his status. This appearance was not just a form of protection, but a kind of costume signaling his mission. In his hands, he held a staff, with which he not only examined patients but also maintained distance to avoid contamination. But behind this terrifying appearance lay a human story. Plague doctors were often lonely, and their work required isolation. They had to face grief and suffering that others could not understand. How did they cope with fear? How did they maintain emotional balance when each day brought new tragedies? Perhaps it was in this ability to retain their humanity, despite the horrors surrounding them, that their strength lay. The work of a plague doctor involved not only treating the sick, but also keeping statistics, organizing quarantines, and monitoring sanitary conditions. They had to be not only doctors, but also administrators and sometimes even investigators. In a time when the plague claimed lives, It was important to identify sources of infection and prevent its spread. Every case could be the last, and this realization weighed heavily on their shoulders like a heavy stone. In coping with fear, many plague doctors sought comfort in religion and philosophy. They reflected on life and death, on what it meant to be human in a world full of fear. This gave them the strength to continue their work despite everything happening around them. Their lives were a true test of spirit, and they became symbols of hope for those who survived. While some plague doctors became famous and respected figures, others faced distrust and even hatred. Society often sought someone to blame for their troubles, and doctors were frequently cast as scapegoats. How difficult it must have been for them when, instead of gratitude, they received only condemnation and disdain. Yet despite this, they continued to fulfill their duty, knowing that the fate of many people depended on them. Thus, the life of a plague doctor was full of contradictions: courage and fear, hope and hopelessness, respect and disdain. These people became symbols of the fight against the plague, and their story reminds us of the importance of retaining humanity even in the hardest of times. Plague doctors, these enigmatic figures, left their mark not only on the history of medicine, but also on culture. Their images have firmly entered literature, cinema, and even fashion. But what draws us to these characters? Perhaps it is their mystery and drama, as well as the paradoxical nature of their role. They were both saviors and symbols of fear. In popular culture, plague doctors are often depicted as gloomy, mysterious figures, emphasizing their connection to the dark side of human nature. Horror films and historical dramas use their images to create an atmosphere of anxiety and uncertainty. We see them in Gothic novels, where they become the embodiment of inevitable death, but also in comics, where they can act as anti-heroes. This contradiction makes them especially appealing to modern audiences. But what can we learn from the experience of the plague doctors? In times of pandemics and global crises, their story serves as a reminder of the importance of medical ethics and humanity. They were not just doctors, but individuals who sought ways to help those suffering. Their approach to treatment, despite the fear and danger, inspires us to reflect on how we can act in times of uncertainty. Modern society faces new challenges, and the experience of plague doctors can teach us a lot. We see how important it is to retain humanity, compassion, and solidarity in times of crisis. Their courage and resilience can serve as an example for us when we face difficulties and fears. The irony is that despite their tragic fame, plague doctors became symbols of hope. Their images remind us that even in the darkest of times, there is room for light and human kindness. We may ask ourselves, how can we become plague doctors in our society, helping those in need of support and care? Thus, plague doctors remain relevant not only as historical figures, but also as symbols of humanity and hope. Their story continues to inspire us, urging us to reflect on how we can improve the world around us, even when it seems full of fear and uncertainty.